basically all the time. It should be recording now. The So I have had the same idea that you have had, which is I should start recording my online matches and not necessarily talk during the match, but talk after the match, like overlay some audio about either what I'm thinking or something like that, right? The
Yeah.
natural progression for that is to take a setup with me to like Portland or to see if Sean will, humor my ideas and record like a feature table at a event, say like Ragnarok or like Regrowth Cup in Portland, and record all the matches and then have like get like the guys who are either playing the match or guys who are really good at commentating matches just talk
Yeah.
over top of it.
Yeah.
Uh, I like like Simon Christie and Mano are really good, and so is Mace at like commentating these matches. So I think it'd
Mhm.
be interesting if we got good matches recorded for them to talk over because I think that's really what people like. Like I don't think people necessarily care um if it's live. I think they care more about like the quality of the content over it. Do you know what I mean?
I think that they absolutely do. It I actually recorded it with sound on, and
Ooh.
I've noticed that like sometimes just when I'm playing with my friends, sometimes
Hmm.
just us rapping at one another, like, oh, I don't got the ball, like real legit table talk. I think that it makes pretty entertaining too. I mean, there's no stakes, right? But yeah, a
Exactly.
final table is different. I'm never around the final tables though, so I don't know what that's like.
See, yeah, I agree with you. I think I wouldn't. I was actually talking with Simon about this, and it wouldn't be. It was either Simon or Sean, but it wouldn't be recording like like the top table because if you
Mhm.
do like a 6+1 or something like that, somebody's gonna sit at that top seat for the majority of the tournament. And by majority, I mean if it's 6 rounds, they're gonna sit in that top seat 3, maybe 4 rounds.
Mhm.
So what I would do is a feature table. So yeah, we're gonna get that. Like we'll probably like record like round 6, but also go find people who might be entertaining or matchups that might be entertaining and record them as well. Otherwise, you're gonna get the same dude playing. Like you'll get I don't know, fucking somebody on the deck playing 4 rounds, and that's cool to talk about, but not for 4 rounds.
Yeah, the decisions, the little nuances. I thought that did you watch the final that was just recently the Derby final?
I was at work, so officially no, but hypothetically yes, I did watch it.
Okay. Well, I didn't watch it live, but I watched the Twitch stream. I was able to pick it up, and so I was just making dinner. I had it on the iPad, just playing while I'm eating. And they did some pretty good breakdown. There was like one crucial play uh, where I feel like McGran took over the whole game, and some of their insights into what he was trying to do was really it was just really on point. And yeah, that was fantastic. They had like 4 people or 5 people narrating, so at times they could kind of like
Yep.
but that's to be expected when we're not talking like a broadcast team like CBS Sports, right? It's like just a couple of dudes farting around with a microphone.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good thing. So like Mace was on there and I've never heard him commentate before, but he has some interesting insights that the that Mano and Simon didn't have that I
Mm-hmm.
thought was that brought a lot. So I kind of like the idea of having 3, maybe even 4 dudes on there that like they're all competitive players, right? They all know what they're talking about, but
Yeah, yeah,
their different decision trees based off of what they're seeing was entertaining to see them compare and contrast like their different lines, right? And it just shows
yeah.
that there are 3 or 4 like easily defensible lines, right? That could have been played, and then their talk through of them. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like there's something to be had there. It's I need to figure out the technical aspect of recording matches.
There's editing software, and I see like the way that some of these guys. I mean, like Timmy talks. He edits
He does
his
good
like
stuff.
his
Yeah.
stuff looks nice. Like it look. I mean, I don't know. I watch YouTube, right? But I'm not
Right.
like I'm not a connoisseur of video editing, but like the way that he does it is really good. Um, and I'm such a lame for saying this, but I watch Moto. I've never played digital
Ooh.
Magic. But I do.
So you're saying you're a sadist, is what you're saying. Okay, continue. All right.
But I'll watch a recording like a moto recording, and there's a couple guys that I really actually enjoy watching them play. Brian, uh, what's his name? He normally posts a bunch of legacy videos, but
Brian
some of
Cowell,
his,
probably.
yeah. Do you know
Yeah.
him, or have you
I know
heard of
of
him?
him. I've heard of him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. His videos are really easy to watch because he'll edit the dead parts out of the game. So it'll be like, that point in time where you're like, okay, what should I do? And you're thinking, or the other player's thinking, and it's just like when you're watching a video that hasn't been compressed and cut those little moments out, it's like a 2 hour video, and you're watching the deck versus zoo, and it just takes forever, or whatever you're watching. I think if I could figure out what the heck he's doing to cut out those little things, that is how I think I would like to make videos. But I think that is also crucial to you know keeping people engaged, because when you're sitting there and you're watching and I take my time when I'm playing. If it's a high leverage play and I'm trying to I got like one or two things that I may do, but I think that cutting that stuff out is where I really need. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, it can't be that hard. It's just like some of those dudes, I would just message them and be like, "How would I do this?" I don't know. It's something I'm gonna get to at some point in time, just not today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not a lack of money to buy the equipment, because I was talking to a couple guys about what they have for setups, and it wouldn't be like I would need to spend maybe $100, right?
Right.
Like on some small stuff. And then it's just a matter of like getting the camera and lighting right so that the cards don't reflect, because everybody's playing in sleeves. Like that's like the hardest part to figure out.
There was a guy that was doing it at that event we were at in Vegas.
That was for Timmy Talks too, and a
That
lot of it
was.
recorded well. I think they were just using an iPad, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, well, the dude had the whole setup, and it was a crowded room. I mean, you were there, but he was just kind of moving around and setting up, and I don't know how he was picking his tables, but it seemed like that guy knew exactly what he was doing.
Are you going to Vegas this year?
No, I can't.
Okay.
I can't make that.
I'm gonna go to that one this year. If that dude's back, I'm gonna steal and ask that question. Vegas, like, I will probably always go to a Vegas event because I can literally fly in the morning of, and always, if I have to, fly out that night if I really had to. And that's what makes it so nice for me.
Yeah, whenever I signed up for Alaskan airline,
Yes.
like frequent flyer or something, because the last time when I saw you a couple weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting these emails, and it's like, oh, fly anywhere in the country for like $59. And I look at it and I'm like, man, this looks sick. I could literally go to every event I want to go to, but it's like, it's that 5 hour Pacific Ocean that screws me up. Like
it's getting you.
Yeah. I get a little bit of FOMO, or not FOMO, but I get a little jealous of you guys, Seattle to LA, Seattle to San Diego for $60. I'm like, dude, I'll go watch some baseball games, man. That's easy, right? It's like less than cost of good tickets. It's great.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about baseball real quick, because I owe you a few things. I owe a bunch of people some couples dinners, but what I owe you is a baseball game. I went with my father-in-law to a Mariners game.
Yeah.
And we paid some money for those tickets because it was against the Toronto Blue Jays, and apparently that's the only Canadian team in existence right now. So every Canadian that could travel across the border was there.
It's their national team. That's awesome. Okay.
It was like literally like a Toronto Blue Jays home game, a Mariners away game in Seattle. We were definitely the minority. Seats were fantastic. Concessions were great. I still don't really care about baseball per se, but I put a little money on it to make myself care, and that was the last inning was good, and I made some money, so that's also very helpful.
You bet on Seattle, right?
Of course.
Dude, you can't go wrong. They're on fire this season.
Yeah, they just I think they just swept the Astros. I've been like, so when I go into somebody's room at work, most of them, most of the guys are watching sports, so I get a peek at what's happening, every 20 minutes or so, right? Like,
Okay.
so I've been keeping track of that. Also, I'm sure one person's gonna hate when I say this, but like I like when the Astros lose because they're so fucking smug about the time that they cheated to win, apparently, like a couple years ago. And I know that's
But
probably controversial, but I don't give a shit. Like, you can cheat, that's fine, but I wouldn't be so fucking smug about it, I guess.
it's a it's a weird thing about baseball and cheating. You know, it's cheating. Baseball and cheating are like
Yeah, no, I
it's
get
like
it.
it's
Like,
almost like encouraged. It's like the only sport where it's
yes.
like encouraged. You know, I love that. I don't like the steroid era, but we all gawked at everything that was happening, and then now after the fact, we want to, if you were a Giants fan, you go, oh, he was the greatest ever. If you were a St. Louis fan, you go, Mark McGuire, he's got the record. But like ultimately, everyone was watching this stuff, and we all knew what was happening. Just like we watched Lance Armstrong win 7 times in a row, one man in like a field
Yeah.
of hundreds, and he wins 7 times in a row. Come on, like that's not.
Yeah,
That's
it was just a matter. It's just like you want to be the guy, you want to be the team or the guy who gets like a new rule because of you,
yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
that means that you were pushing the limits. Like, I my personal opinion is that we should professional athletes in general, just anybody who wants to, but professional athletes, I think that we should allow steroids, but it just needs to be monitored, right? Like, just the dudes are already doing it, right? It's just another test that they have to pass.
Yeah.
So why not get rid of that second part, which is just like them trying to beat a like monitoring test, so that way they can be monitored by professional like doctors, and so that they're not really harming their health. The steroids, like, yeah, it makes you stronger, but it also helps you recover faster. That I think is the big plus if you're going to play. I think baseball runs like all year round, minus like what, Christmas and New Year's. So I think that's it's fair. And if I was going to throw that many pitches, I'd probably be looking for an edge too,
Oh
or
yeah,
have
for
to hit
sure.
that many balls, right? Like, that's my opinion. And then that way everybody's on the same page. There's no reason to cheat anymore. Everything's on the up and up, and we can really see what records can be pushed or not.
Yeah. I mean, I I don't think you're ever going to get all illicit substances out of the game because they can say, oh, this one's illegal,
There's too
this
much
one's
money
not
in it.
quite. Yeah, there's too much money in it. The difference between a 22 million or a 22 home run shortstop and a 34 home run shortstop over the course of his 5 years of like prime baseball is $100 million. So like it's totally
It's a
worth
ton of
it to
money.
give it a shot,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
There are people who do steroids who pay to do steroids. They don't even make money if they do them. So like, yes, like that's why I think I know we're getting away from magic talk, but like that's why I'm like we should just do away with this like prohibition thought and just let guys be open about it. And I think it'll just create a better atmosphere overall.
I think we have a pretty good thing going right now. A guy gets popped. He's half year. He gets popped a second time. It's a full year or something like that. I think we have it like just tight enough to discourage people from really abusing it.
Sure.
And then if you can get away with it and kind of fly under the radar, nah, you kind of do. But they do have random testing throughout the year, as far as I know. And so
Oh, I
I don't
believe it.
know. I
Like
think
they
the
got to
steroid
maintain some
era,
semblance of like, oh, we care. You know what I mean? Like they don't really,
exactly.
but
Exactly. Yeah. I think the steroid era is over. But back to the Astros, uh, they're only stealing signs isn't illegal. What's illegal is that they were using you can't steal the I think the rule is like you can't steal signs using technology. So
sure.
you can have a lot of teams will have a guy with binoculars and they're like, oh, it's vision enhancement. Is it technology? Is it not? In this case, the Astros technology was a guy with binoculars banging a trash can, and the trash can was a step too far, but it's
Sure. Sure.
it is what it is, right? I mean, people are probably mad that they weren't doing it, but I'm sure that there were 15 other teams that were doing kind of the same sort of thing. Just like the sticky stuff on pitchers' fingers,
Yeah, stick
that
them.
that was
Yeah.
last year, and it's like everyone was doing it, and they say, hey, you can't do it anymore, and then people grumble, and then they all kind of find something else to do for an edge, So yeah.
I think the speaking of the stick 'em stuff, I watched a pitcher. I couldn't remember if it was Toronto or Seattle. but I watched a pitcher like let a ball loose and it like slipped out of his hand and that thing went wild. So I may understand, like I know it probably gives him an unfair advantage, but
Yeah,
I also feel that it's if I was the guy at bat, I would have been scared shitless because that thing came towards him and it wasn't an intentional like I'm trying to hit you. He wasn't
right.
crowding the plate, none of that stuff.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. I don't know when that's going to become a problem because it seems like the seasons are going just a little bit deeper into
Right.
October than they did back in the day. Like, the World Series was October 7th or whatever was when it began or something. I mean, I just kind of remember that from when they had the earthquake at the Coliseum. But now it's like they're playing almost until the end of October. When it gets colder, the pitcher getting a good hand on that ball gets a little bit more difficult. So I think,
Hmm.
I don't know, it's dangerous. I don't want to see a guy, hitting the head, right? Like, but
Yeah.
rosin is enough.
Unintentionally hitting the head.
Well,
Unintentionally.
either way, I don't want to see him get hit in the head.
The okay, maybe back to Magic Talk. Maybe.
Okay,
What
sure.
events are you planning on? Do you have any events on the timeline for this upcoming year? Are you gonna be in on the mainland in October?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I will. I will be there. I mean that. I guess for me, that was the first event I went to that I actually flew to,
Okay.
and I got I got invited. Just um, I don't even. I think my man from Chicago, Bob, put in a good word for me because he visited, and I think he managed to get us an invite or something. He said something
Hmm.
to someone. I have to assume because nobody knows. There's like six of us. Nobody knows who we are. But
Exactly.
that God, when I'm there, it's like Friday afternoon. I'm thinking to myself, is this heaven? Like
Is
it's
it
like
real? Yeah.
there's like two dudes jamming Goldeneye in the corner. Like there's like all the fruit snacks you could want. I mean, come on, it's paradise, man.
Everybody stopped for Bloodsport at one point. Just like the final fight. I don't know what else to say. Like, but everything just stopped
Pocket
for like
sand,
25 minutes. Yeah, just pocket sand.
pocket
Uh,
sand.
is that all you have on for this year so far?
Yeah, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, my roommate and I are expecting. So
Ah,
first, yeah, so first week in November.
it's
Um,
over. Got it.
yeah, so I'm gonna be, I'm probably gonna be checking out for at least 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. I won't be traveling to the mainland, at least not without her.
Yeah.
But she's pretty cool. So and I think that she actually likes me playing Magic, but I'm sure, things are gonna change once we've got, a little bit more responsibilities in our life. So
I hear that.
yeah,
I hear
so
that.
Chalice is gonna be like my last for at least 6 months, but then after that I intend on,
I'll
trying
see
to
you
trying to
five
get to
years
the
from now.
mainland.
I'll see you in like 5 years. Okay, but like, don't worry, I won't forget you. But I'll see you in 5 years.
Yeah,
No, we'll
well,
see.
we're still trying to put something on out here, but it's tough, man. There's just so much logistics that go into it, and then
Yes.
asking, like what we just talked about, you going to Vegas is cost you less than $100 round trip. You
Yeah,
know what I
it's
mean?
nothing.
But
It's a free
yeah,
roll.
but coming out here to Honolulu, everyone, especially people on the East Coast, they're losing a day almost or a half
Hmm.
day flying. So and $450 is the entry fee, but um, I think it's worth it if we hold it in a cold month. I mean, you want to leave Seattle in February anyways, don't you?
Yeah, cold is a loose term for you guys. Like cold is like what, 60 degrees? 60 degrees and maybe slightly overcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's tough.
that's
It's tough out here. But I am excited. I was going to ask you if you wanted to talk about that, but I'm glad that you're still looking at venues. I think I'm going to convince Mike France to come on here and we're going to talk through like the nuts and bolts of putting on an event. That's a future spoiler. We have talked about making that episode.
we were actually I was discussing this with Kira at Ragnarok, and I don't know what caused the wrinkle, but I would think if there was like a binder and it was like lessons learned, do this, don't do that. Make sure you have an extra garbage can, like some real simple things that the tournament organizers who have some events under their belt, like Jeremy or Sean, the SoCal crew, like they could lend a lot of information. I'm sure that they'd help if you asked them, but if there was just like a Google
A
page
Google
or
Docs, just like
a
an
Google
open Google
Docs.
Doc, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're probably not wrong, and that's probably a good idea. Something that I will take that forward. I'm actually going to write that down at some point. That's actually really smart. Yes. So hopefully Mike will hear this, and then we will schedule something because he's on the East Coast, so it's just as bad as talking to you. The Do you want to? Let's talk. Hold on. I know you sent me a note about the stuff you wanted to talk about.
Oh, I didn't. I
I
don't care
will.
about talking about anything, but
I'm glad that we didn't even you didn't even introduce yourself. Go ahead and do that now that we're 36 minutes into this podcast. In
Um,
case nobody knows who you are, just in case.
okay, my name is Ken Fritz, and I'm part of the Dudes of Paradise. We're out here in Honolulu. Um, Hawaii is more of a transient population, so we got a lot of guys who are like, in the military, and they'll come in and out. We have like a core group of anywhere from 4 to 8 people, give or take 1 or 2 guys. Some guys have rotated out. Like you guys got Dr. Rostopus from
Yep.
us.
He actually works. I think he works at the hospital I work at.
Yeah, love Ross. He's one of the best ever. And then one of our guys just moved back to the East Coast, and so he's looking at getting into the Washington D.C. old school community. And it is what it is, right? Like we're a small island. I think the total population of Hawaii is like just over 1 million. So there's just not a lot of old schoolers out here. But we tend to have a good time, and we generally just barbecue and sling cards and have some beers on a Sunday afternoon. It's pretty nice.
What rule set do you guys use? You guys use pack rule, or do you guys have your own stuff?
Yeah, I think we kind of just do whatever
feels right.
During COVID time, it's like if DFB's next major event was going to be pack, or if it was
Boreal, yeah,
Swedish or whatever, we would just kind of play a couple weekends for whatever the format was, and then we'd help one another with our decks, and then we'd all enter the tournament. And one of our guys did pretty good in one of those events a couple of years ago. I don't even remember if it was winter or summer derby, but he made it to the top 4. My man Tom did, so we're pretty proud of him because for such a tiny little group, it's kind of nice to have like one guy at least do something at some point in time.
It's like the old school team, like actual, like back in the day when people had like small teams and they're like, okay, we gotta get one of us to the top. It doesn't matter who it is. Somebody's got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we just play whatever format's available, and then we have been playing a lot of X Point or 7 Point, just because it's a really good. If a guy doesn't have all the Moxen, he can still play those formats, and so those are like I think all the dudes will always bring one of those decks to every event so that we can all participate. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Dude, I feel like X Point is like the new hotness in old school, right? Like pre-modern is like the new like old frame card stuff going on, but like all I hear people talking about now is X Point this and X Point that, and I guess I'm gonna have to give it a shot at some point, but it's just another format to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the advantage of X Point, like if you look at old school decks, like if you just look at now that the top 8 of this recent Summer Derby wasn't incredibly diverse, but some of the decks people were making different choices. But even then, even with those different choices, you could look at those decks and like 12 to 20 cards were the same across the decks. And then if you remove the lands, which lands aren't really a choice so much as they are just a necessity.
They're just a requirement.
Like,
yeah,
you're not like, oh, spicy Bayou Splash, It's like
nobody ever talks about the lands.
Yeah. So if you look at that, it means that less than, in a lot of these top 8s, there's only like 20% of the deck that is actually like made a choice by the players. I'm not saying that the people are making bad or erroneous choices, but the game, I don't want to say it gets stale because it's still very competitive for those guys to get to the top 8. And they had to play against a wide variety of decks to get there, but the decks that do really well in old school, they're using every, it's like, I thought Will McGrand using regrowth was spicy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so if like
a restricted card. Yeah.
yeah, if regrowth was the spice, and he had a couple bolts, which I thought was an awesome choice. That's actually how we did it back in '95. You'd have like one or two bolts.
Sure.
But yeah, it just X Point allows you to have more room in your deck to build because you don't get to use all those cards, which I think is more fun.
I pulled up a Mana Matrix 5 minutes before I sent you the link for this call, and you're right. So the top 16 decks, 124 distinct cards among
Oh,
16 decks. It's yeah. So you're right. Like I'm just giving you some quote unquote like data points that go
yeah.
with it's I would share the screen, but I don't want to mess with it. But it's 11% of the card pool. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. The Okay, let's talk Summer Derby. First of all, congratulations, Will, if you listen to this podcast. If not, I'm sure somebody might tell him. But uh 7 of the top 16 decks, shops decks. And by shops, I'm just saying they have more than they have 3 or 4 copies of shops in their deck list. And I like trolled one of the discords and was like, why should shops not be restricted in Atlantic? And I think the answer is A, because it's old school and it's fun to play. If you have 4 shops, you really want to play them. B, that's part. Everybody knows that this format, like the format is broken, right? And it's not. I'm not gonna say it's solved, but I'd say it's reasonably solved, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like in Legacy up until very recently, like the best deck in Legacy for 10 years, right, has been Blue Red Delver. 10 years
Yep.
probably
Yep.
stretch, but Blue Red Delver in some form. Sometimes Grixis, sometimes with green, whatever. Um, and I think old school is similar to that case where it's like Workshop is Workshops is probably one of the best cards and therefore makes some of the best decks. And
Mhm.
it's an easy play, right? Deck that not to play, but is an easy choice to make, right? Same thing with playing the deck. It's now there's margin in there, right? Like Will's a good example where he was playing Regrowth and Lightning Bolts, where there are some guys who play the deck who would not consider those card choice options, right? But
Yeah.
he's at the end of the day, he's still playing the deck. That's kind of my thoughts. It's like, could Workshop be restricted? Yes. Should it be restricted? Probably not.
Well, so I think I would. Uh, I
And I really
just
don't care
full
either
dis.
way. I'm never gonna buy
Yeah.
shops. I don't give a shit. So like, I just if we want to, we can talk about it. We can have a
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay. So I don't want to. Everyone is gonna have their own opinion,
Yeah.
and I think workshops is something like strip mine, where people probably it's very rare to get to strip mine someone 3 times in a single game. Like you don't get stripped out
Rarely
that often.
happens. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like what but when you do, when that weird occurrence happens, you really remember it because it is so incredibly frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
That workshops operates on a little bit different access in that it's not oppressive, but they're just doing things that no one else can do. There's no other deck that can just pump out fatties on and not just fatties, but oppressive game pieces like Icy Manipulator, Relic Barrier, um, and if they want to run the Winter Orb or if they're trying to go with the Howling Mine, and then but they're backing all that stuff up with just like 4/4s and Triskelions, and then the chances of them landing a turn one Su-Chi, it's like almost a slam dunk. It happens quite a bit. You know what I'm saying? Or turn two is like the latest that they're going to do it. So I think that workshops is not a broken deck, but I feel like, or I don't think that the deck is broken, but I feel like 4 workshops is just it's just too much. It makes the deck just way too consistent, and it is just consistently a hammer. Whereas the deck, even though the deck is proven to be very, very good, there's not like one single card in the deck that makes it broken. So it's really easy to look at shops and say it ought to be restricted because it's just an easy target to restrict, like Bizarre
Sure.
Bag that or something like that. Yeah, just a whole lot of words, but I don't know, man. I think workshops could be restricted, and I don't think that it would be an unplayable deck. It just wouldn't be represented. What was it? 8 out of the top 16?
7 out of 16.
7 out of 16. Yeah.
But it did. I'm just gonna caveat this again because I'm sure there's like somebody at home yelling. Maybe but like neither one of us care. Nobody's gonna change DFB's mind about this. It's just is how it's gonna be. This is just fun to. It's fun to navel gaze sometimes. But I don't disagree. If you had to ban a card out of the deck, what would it be? It would probably be Big Book, like
Yeah.
J-Tome. It doesn't not a lot of other decks play it, so it would be like a targeted hit. I mean, I probably said that, and somebody's probably yelling at me for that too, but that's probably the card I would choose right off the top of my head. That would slow it down. Yeah, I think in large tournaments, in like the largest being Derby season, LobsterCon is probably number 2 to that. And I haven't looked at the LobsterCon deck list, but I think shops is a problem in where people are going to concentrate, like where all the shops players concentrate, right? So in like your local, like if you're just living on the East Coast and you're playing Atlantic rule set, like how many dudes show up with a shops deck? Like unless you live in Boston, not very many. So I think that also makes it okay in that because the cost of the card prohibits who's going to own 4 of them. It also makes that in itself makes it less oppressive. Like if Magical Candyland, if Dave's like, hey, next year LobsterCon proxies are fine, which this is again never going to happen. But Magical Candyland, how many people show up with a shop stack? 50% of the field, maybe more.
I don't know.
A lot of people, I guess.
It's hard to say. I can't put myself in that position because that's a tough question for me to answer. I don't think. Okay, all full disclosure, I don't think shops is cool. I don't.
Sure.
It doesn't bring me joy. I would say that the deck brings me joy. Playing the deck, I actually do like playing the deck. It's fun. I don't play the deck. I kind of play. I have a kind of a crappy version of like shops deck, the deck mix up, but I am a control player at heart. I don't know. I don't think shops is cool. I wouldn't buy them. But
Dude,
I think
I'll piss off. Yeah, go ahead.
People would proxy them, sure, just to get a feel for the power. But I think maybe the meta just needs to come around. I think this Winter Derby has just shown people, look, you gotta have plenty of artifact destruction. You need to be able to handle this type of stuff. You know, a Meek Stone, something like, I don't know.
Not gonna do it.
There's something. There's something.
I like Pez's deck. I think he came to play against shops, and he had a bunch of Shatterstorms. Now he's a way better player than me, so I think I guess like to me like Shatterstorm probably works, but it feels slow at sorcery speed. That's my only complaint. I don't think the 4 CMC is a problem. I think it's the speed at which it is played. But let me piss off every shops player without ever having even touched a real workshop in my life. Shops is just an aggro deck where your only decision is mulliging down to a shop and a threat, and then playing, and then just waiting to see what comes off the top of the deck.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's
well, cool. Send your hate mail. Like.
Yeah. Well, no, off the top of the deck though, but they're off the top of the deck is nothing but heavy
It's
hitter mid range
bangers. It's
stuff.
bangers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all mid range that you're casting on turn 1 or 2. So it's but I mean it's part of Magic. I don't think, I don't know. And I'll also say, as soon as they restrict shops, and they being whoever is going to listen to this podcast and think that we make any sense at all, as soon as they do, I'm going out and I'm buying one shop. I'm buying one shop
why don't you just
once
why don't you
it
join me
drops.
on the European train and come play Swedish, where it is one shop and there's a BB8 deck. Like it's like I'm still a 4-strip mana burn at heart, but it is fun to go play Swedish. It's
Yeah,
it's nice to go do that, and you can buy one shop and you can still play your trikes and all that other stuff.
yeah.
It's just a slightly different deck.
But yeah,
That's
I don't know that I need Fallen Empires, I guess. I mean, what Fallen Empires just gives you,
him,
like,
him, him
yeah,
competitively. Goblin Grenade for everybody else like me.
yeah, it doesn't give you anything. What are we missing? We're missing him. That's it.
Aliopile is nice for like if you're gonna play a monocolored deck and you want to dumpster 2-power creatures that have protection, right? Like
Yeah, yeah. Or Dwarven Soldier. You need Dwarven Soldier for the orcs for the mirror match.
yeah, for the mirror match, the counterburn mirror match, you got to have the Dwarven soldiers, Dwarven lieutenants, or whatever it is. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
go
Dwarven
buy it now,
Lieutenants. Yeah.
buy it now.
I
The
love that.
I can't wait for people to hopefully, I don't even care, probably talk to me about shops and whatever. They'll be like, no, you're wrong. I can't wait.
Let
Let's
me just finish the
yes.
shop stop real quick. Okay, so here's my plan. Here, I was actually thinking about this a little bit earlier today, and it just came up with it. And there's probably a million ways why it would never work. Okay,
We need a
uh,
7th format. Let's go.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's called only Merfolk. No, it's
Yes.
it's, it's oops all Merfolk. It's okay. So you restrict shop to 1, and then at the end of a match that goes to time. So at the end of so let's say in like a paper tournament, it goes to time, um, and it's like 1-1, right? It's 1-1. So it's game 3. Game 3 goes to time. The person who has the least amount of restricted cards in their graveyard wins. We wouldn't have the super fun orb flip at the end, but that will rein in the deck a little bit, won't it? Or no?
I'm gonna ask people who are smarter than me what their thoughts are on that. I like the idea. Like the I I think that this is a much broader topic that we don't need to talk completely about. I like the idea of modifying small rules for like the Friday event just to see what happens,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so this would be one of those ones where it'd be like, okay, it's kind of niche, and I would probably add another rule just because I don't know how many game threes go to time outside of control mirrors. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what it looks like. I think it would change how you play game 3, right? Because you'd be less likely to mind twist somebody or use a restricted card and just try and time out, right? Like there'd
I
be
play.
another out maybe.
So you're gonna sandbag the ancestral. You're gonna
If you're
play.
if you're gonna play to the clock, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I never get to the situation. I never play. I'm always like, Kurt Ape, Ernum, go ahead, and then
Yeah,
they're like, okay, this I've won already, so it's not even.
I want
We
to. I
never go
want
to
to
game
hear
3.
from. I want to hear from some of the guys who like the accomplished shot or the accomplished the deck players like Will or Quinn. I want to know, or maybe the tournament organizers would know how many of these games went to time. How many at time game threes did they have?
I'm sure it can be. I'm sure it can be figured out, but I don't think anybody keeps track.
Yeah, nobody does. I don't know. I was just trying to think of like, because I don't know that big books should be restricted, but yeah, I guess that would be the best target. Okay, that's my stupid idea. But I don't know. I was just thinking like, how would you? Because if we're looking at the top 16 of the Derby and we're looking at, okay, it's like we got 4 copies of the deck, 7 copies of shops, and then like 3 or 4 others that get steamrolled in the first round.
See, I
That's
think
not.
we're doing a disservice. We're doing a disservice here. There is more than that in the Derby top 16. I'm gonna just quickly go through, but a mono blacklist made it to the top 16, which I think is a good sign of a healthy format that like a quote unquote budget deck can make it that far, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
there was a Twiddle. I'm gonna say, God, somebody's gonna get angry. Twiddle Vault deck that had Glasses of Urza in it that made a
Yeah, and
deep run.
Ernigins.
And
Wait, and
Ernie's,
Ernigins,
right?
right?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
I saw that. That one was cool.
That was a cool deck. Pez had his blue red deck. It's blue or counterburn, but he's got his own like play to it, and I don't want to disrespect him by trying to articulate what those like changes are. And then yeah, there's a bunch of shop stacks, right? So I think we're being slightly unfair when we say it's not diverse, but I think there you also have to acknowledge 7 shop stacks. And I would say that Slanfan's shop stack was different, was significantly, it wasn't just like 3 card difference. It was a significantly different deck than your dad's shop deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There
yeah.
he was doing something different there.
Didn't he have a Titania song? Wasn't that his?
I'm gonna say sure without looking at his deck, but I'm gonna go look at it real quick. Uh, just dead airspace as I try and read names on the fastness. It it does have a Titania song in there.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
So I would say that is not like it's different. He's also only playing 3 shops, probably because he only owns 3 shops. I don't know. One of them's whiteboarded. Who knows? The so I think you could look at this top 16 and you can make an argument either way, right? You can be like, look, this format is relatively healthy. Like, look at all these. There was yes, 7 of the decks were the same. However, that also means that 9 decks were completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a consistency of the shops. 5 Moxen and a Soul Ring, 4 workshops. You're casting a Suchi on turn 1, and you're just banging face. Unless they have a 1 mana answer or a Mox and an answer, it's really hard to recover from that. And just the consistency that it gives you, because workshops effectively represents 3 cards. It's not just a land that makes 3 mana. It's 3 lands. So the other 6 cards in your hand are just gasoline, because it ramps you so fast, and it's like an ancestral recall land. Or I mean, if you kind of think about it like that. So.
It's a 3-for-1 because it's virtually 3 lands, right? Because you get
Yeah,
3 mana out of it, but it's only 1 card, so it's even better than like a 3 Mox opener because you're not down 3 cards, you're only down 1 card. So
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
everybody knows it's broken. Everybody knows it's broken, but I don't know. Whenever I play against like guys who have like shop stacks, like
Mhm.
I know I'm gonna lose the minute that I sit down across from like Mike, right? Like if I know if I'm me and him are playing, like I'm like 10% or less to win that match. I still have a good time with it because I don't know. I guess I just don't care that much. I never feel bad about those matches, even if I get rolled, because I guess I just know that it's coming at some point. And
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
had
that from a casual perspective.
it's just it's tough. I had let's see, I had like 3 disenchants in a divine offering main. I had another disenchant and a divine offering sideboard, and I stuffed them into my deck. I was at 4-0. I played the eventual winner at the Fallen Angels event that Vexo put on.
Yep.
And I didn't see a single artifact kill spell in either game. Yeah, it was pretty brutal, and I just got ran over by the shop deck. And the guy was just consistently, he just hammered everyone, just the same that he hammered me. I mean, maybe if someone had a good match against him, they can speak up, but that guy just owned the day. And I was just like, oh man, like if I had to play 2 or 3 shops players at every event, I think I would just always end up, X2, X3. There's just, I can't beat those guys.
I think you just need to play worse decks or play worse like I do, and then you only see him maybe round 1, maybe round 2, and then you're just like off into the spice land, and you never see a shop again. Never see it.
Yeah, that would work.
All right, I need to play. long story short, my wife is out of town right now, and I got 4 cats in this room that I have to play with at some point before I go to bed. But I do want to talk. You said you want to talk about M30, and I'm interested to talk about the subject. Maybe more. Maybe we just do a second episode at some point. But have you bought any M30, or do you have anybody who plays it out there? Like, is it
No,
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 not at all. I
no.
the
I
only
haven't.
person, yeah, I only know one guy. It's Quinn. Has a couple of lands from M30, and it's just to piss people off. Like, you know what I mean? Like he bought them just to like troll.
So yeah, I guess the thing that I was thinking about the other day, because I have there's a guy in our group. He's a pretty he's a financial advisor, and
Okay.
he's a pretty serious guy. He like looks at the markets and stuff like that. I don't think that he's like a heavy hitter when it comes to like buying classic cards or selling classic cards. He's not like a reseller. We don't have any of those guys in our group, or even on island possibly. But we were kind of talking about like what's going on with the market, and I think M30. I think the consensus, or at least what my man Zoli and I kind of came to a consensus on, was that M30 shook people's confidence. I don't think that the release of the cards has impacted the price of old school in terms of there's a greater supply of scrublands, or there's more Moxen in the world now, and so the Mox that you paid $3,500 for during peak COVID, that's why it's gone down. But I think that it shook the confidence of people. And I think if we look back, or now it's been a year, and when it first came out, we've been all dragging the set and dragging Wizards of the Coast. How could they do this? They reneged on their promise or whatever. But I think nobody is buying this crap. Like maybe there's someone that's collecting it, and if they are, and you see me in an event, tell me why, or why you believe that this is ever going to be worth money. But it's like that Lord of the Rings card for $2.5 million that Post Malone bought. I'm like, there's nobody's giving him $2.5 million for this card. Like at any point in time, I don't see it. Um, it's it, and so these Magic 30 cards, like I just kind of looked on TCG Player this afternoon while I was messing around, and Lich, just take Lich for example. It's a
Okay.
card that was only an ABU card. There's like 9 or 10 Liches on TCG Player. If you and they want like $400 or $600 for each of them, or something like that, right? But if you look at the sales history, you can go back and look at sold copies. No one has bought any of these. So this $400, $600 number, they just came up with it like out of nowhere. Just before the Ragnarok event, I bought 4 good unlimited liches for $150 a piece, like real cards. And I don't see who in the world is going to buy the M30 lich because it's rarer. It's like it doesn't make any sense. The prices have no. A Mox is $2,000. You got Dan Frazier signing his artist proofs and selling them
Yes.
on eBay, and he's sold like 6 of them, but no one else is posting them. No one's buying them. People are asking $2,000 for you know, a graded Beckett Mox Ruby new frame. It's uh, I mean, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I just don't see who's paying $2,000 for these cards. I just do not understand it.
I think that people who were speculating bought those cards in packs, minus Quinn who did it to troll those people. I think because you're right. Like I literally was like, oh, let me pull up the old TCG Player. Like the new frame Lich from M30, 111 for the lowest one, and then like an unlimited Lich is 134. Like
Yeah.
why would you ever consider buying the M30 version? I don't know. And I'll parrot what you're saying is that I was at a like MXP Tacoma this weekend, and I went and looked through the booths just to see if there's anything good there. And the like the new frame boxes, like TOA Magic had a bunch of the, like not a bunch, they probably had like a handful of them, and
Hmm.
they basically wanted unlimited pricing for these, like, for lack of a better term, proxy moxes. And I'm like, do you sell these things? Like, what? Like, why would I buy that instead of like an actual unlimited mox if I wanted to ever play vintage in real life, like, or whatever, right? Like,
Did you ask them? Do they sell them?
I did. He said they don't move that often.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I didn't
Moxes
ask him
don't
like
move.
specifically, like, yeah, but their prices were
Moxen
like,
aren't. Yeah, I just I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a bunch of people who bought, and you could buy them for what, $1,000, and now a sealed box is selling for like $1,500. So if you bought a sealed box and you sat on it for a year, you made $500, and good for you. That's a smart investment on your part. But I think that almost everyone that opened up those things has to just be like sad. I see there was an eBay ad for a guy that opened it up and he got like a power surge, like a chaos lace. You know what I'm just like, and he's like, he
the
has
real old
all,
school experience, like, of just getting
yeah,
shit
real,
rares, like, get fucked,
yeah,
like.
just garbage. But so no one's going to open them, and that's what makes them rare. But I think people aren't opening them because they literally don't want the cards. In what world are you? Quinn is the only person that's
Yeah,
using the cards for anything righteous. But I think like you cast a time twister, one of those new bordered time twisters in your old school group, or in your even in your CEDH group. I don't know, man. I think that they're just gonna kind of laugh at you.
I don't. I think there's some parallels to be drawn between M30 and how collector's edition was perceived up until, let's say, COVID, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that might not be fair, but the time might not be right. But I think a lot of people previous to like it becoming acceptable to use CE as, like, in place of unlimited power, like, people would like those cards weren't worth anything, and people would generally look down upon you about having the square corners, right? And
yeah. They
I'm
were clipping
wondering,
them.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. All the CE power I bought minus two pieces have been clipped because that's just how have found them, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I wonder if 10 or 20 years from now, if that's how people will view M30, like, it's like negatively panned by people who are invested in those type of cards, and then later becomes more beloved for some reason. I don't know. I think there's some major differences in that CE was never sold as packs. It was sold as a set, a single set, like
That's
an actual collector's thing, and you knew exactly what you were buying when you bought that, like, when you bought that set, right? And whereas there's a huge difference with M30 in that you're actually buying, like, what I'll call like proxy beta packs where you can get shit fucking rares. So I think there's some like, there's some major differences. I'm I guess we'll see in time. I'm not going to buy that stuff because if I'm going to spend that type of cash, I'm just going to buy unlimited. But I don't know. Maybe there's people out there. Maybe there's a group of people out there who really want that new frame Mox for some format that they play.
see
I don't know.
that's so I bought when I was in between sixth and seventh grade. I bought collector's edition, and
Yeah.
I bought it for like
Nothing.
60.
Yes.
Yeah, I bought it for $60 at like the local. It was like one of these places, kind of like Tower Records, where they had like all the T-shirts and comic books, and like they just had everything in there, right? And I bought it because I wanted to own one of every card, and I wouldn't, and it was like, but this Magic 30 product is just a totally different bird. It's I don't know. It's like, I think if you watch Professor Tolarian Academy or whatever, he said like this product is for nobody. It's not. There's nobody that's like, oh, I want the experience of beta. It's like if you can drop $1,000 on this garbage, like you probably already have
You're
a
just
lot of
buying
the
beta
cards.
cards that you want. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it's
that's
just
where I think a lot of speculation. It's just a lot of speculation on those cards. Now the question is, are they going to get cheaper over time? Because, like, it's turnover, right? Like, companies, specifically like guys who like churn card collections, you don't want to hold on to this stuff. You want to continually be
yeah,
moving cards. That's how you make like a margin, right? Make a profit. So I wonder what the prices are going to look like on these, and do they hit an equilibrium price where people are like, fuck it, it's $200. It says Mox on it. Let's go.
An economist will know the word, but it's like it goes for like a '94 Corvette. It's like the old guy that owns the '94 Corvette, he thinks it's worth $20,000, but
Yes.
everybody else, there's nobody that's willing to pay $20,000 for your red '94 Corvette, dude. Like, we're gonna give you $4,000 just so we can drive it on Halloween. You know, it's like it's not nobody wants that car. Sorry to all the Corvette owners. They're fabulous. But I think the same thing is true for that M30 is like the people that got a hold of it or opened it up or somehow have it in their possession, they're going to come back to reality and realize that the market for this stuff has been saturated because the people who are willing to pay $2,000 for these new border Moxen are just there's there's not a lot of those people. There are collectors that have made this collection, completed their set, and good for them. They're collectors. That's their hobby. That's what they
That's the
enjoy
thing.
doing.
Yep.
But there's very, very few people are going to want to do that. I don't think that they are. And so I expect the prices to plummet. But right now, I think they dragged the prices, the M30 and the fear of Wizards continuing to do this, I think that it dragged the prices down on all the other stuff that we actually do want, you know, like dual lands. Dual lands have come back to Earth. Revised dual lands have come back to Earth. You can afford to buy them again, you
I
know. And
agree. I don't think M30 did it. I
what do you
think
think did it?
just general, like the general United States economy, like the,
Yeah,
I mean, like, I think that, so I don't want to say like I could you normally in person I would just go on this huge rant about the government, but I'm going to try not to do that for some people who might be listening. But
I'll get
with
that
that,
next month.
yeah, well, yes, exactly. With that huge influx of cash, right, from COVID stimulus checks, right? That money had to go somewhere, and it went to a lot of places where you suspect it would go. It went into the like housing market, and a lot of it went into collectibles. I mean, how many dudes were like, "Cool, I'm gonna buy these cards right now," right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I bought a couple cards too. Nothing crazy, but I used some of that stimulus money to buy nerd cards. And now that I think that there is a cooling, with increased interest rates, I think that people are now needing that money to do other things with or want to use it for other things. And that is what is leading to this reduction in prices because people want to get their cash back out.
right. I think that's true, and that does play a role. But I think that the reserved list, the reserved list as a concept was that was baked into the escalation of the prices. So when people are like, well, I have this extra money, I can buy a dual land. They're never going to print them again. This is
Yeah.
something that I want to own. It's not, it's look at the graph over the past 20 years. Like they've gone up and down a few times, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it's just all gravy, you know? And so I think that the prices were really high. Yeah, they were overbaked, but if you look at the correction, they're all still above pre-COVID levels. Now, inflation means that cash is or that money, you know,
Yeah.
$200 3 years ago is more than $200 today, but still the price of the dual lands is it's still above inflation replacement, right?
I mean, I hope it's. I mean, I don't know if it's above CPI, but I would suspect that it probably is. When my wife gets back, we'll ask her these questions about what CPI is, and then I'll actually look at a price graph on like a volcanic island. But I'm excited that prices are coming back down. I don't think M30 had. I think it's a variable in that equation. I don't think it was a significant variable because A, it's a limited print run. B, that it was too expensive for most people to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's probably a C in there somewhere. I just don't know what it is.
I think
But
it. I do think that it scared a lot of people. I've never seen more. I don't want to say people abandoning ship, but I haven't seen more like power for sale at any point than the last like 5 or 6 months. Like people selling a lot of high end cards, and I I saw the prices start to drop right as like M30 was announced, and everyone was losing their minds because nobody really knew how much are they making, how much is going to be opened, how is this going to impact the market, is the price going to slide, are people going to? So I don't know. It's hard to say what it is because there's like many different forces at work that impact the price of a Moxen. It
Sure.
actually is a commodity, but yeah, I don't know why I wanted to talk about M30. I just kind of looked up and noticed that it's been almost an entire year since it was released. Uh, my cards are still worth a couple dollars. You know, the sky didn't fall, the world didn't collapse, and I think Magic is still healthy, but I don't think that Magic 30 did us any favors in terms of like collectors. Is our investment safe? You know, I think that it scared a lot of people.
I I'll make hey, I don't own any expensive cards. Like I have some revised duels and like an unlimited orb and shit like that. But to me, that's like I'm not in deep, right? Like I'm not in like beta on beta duels deep, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think here's what I'm hoping. And I don't care about the price of my collection. I'd rather just be able to buy more cards to play with so I can build more decks, build better decks.
Hmm.
So that's from my perspective where I come from. Generally speaking, wizards will do stuff where they'll make a small thing and test it, right? Expedition cards are a great example of that. The special like formatting of cards now, like where they're like etched foils and stuff like that. And then they
Yeah.
do it once and then they see what happens and then they progressively do more of it until they do too much of it and then they stop. And what I'm hoping is that they saw M30, they saw the money they made from M30, and they do it again, but they do more. And I hope they learn. I hope they learn from their mistakes and they fix. Like I hope that the proxy duels that they print, like have like the lines, like the original revised, like the snakes, if you will, of red and blue or whatever color they're gonna like. The duels are gonna make. I hope they make them more true to form on the old frame stuff. I hope they do it again because if it drives down the price, that just means I get to buy more cards. And I know that probably is upsetting. Like I also don't know if it'll drive down the price of beta, like of true like what I'll call blue chip cards, right? Like Shivan Dragon is probably a really good example of this, right? Like alpha and beta Shivan Dragons are extremely expensive for a multitude of reasons.
Hmm.
There are versions of Shivan Dragon that get handed out for free. And then they just printed a new one, and I mean probably like in the last year or 2 years, like a serialized Shivan Dragon with like special artwork that is also worth, I would assume, thousands of dollars. So I think um, it is possible to print old frame original art cards like CE, like M30, that Eric Martin can buy cheaply. And I don't think that crushes the price of Alpha Beta Unlimited. I think it probably crushes the price of Revised, which is fine because there's a lot more revised out there than most people think, and I don't know why. I think revised duels should be cheaper than what they are if people knew how many were out there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like larger card companies have a pretty firm stockpile of that stuff because it's easy to move. So
Yeah.
that's I think the actual issue is just
I
consolidation.
yeah, and I think that that'll probably be a product for the CEDH bulk anyways. But yeah, I think you're right. In a lot of that,
Sorry, can you hear
but
me? My cat muted my fucking mic.
yeah, I can hear you. I
Okay.
just I would be pretty bummed if the Underground Sea I bought for $900 6 months ago is worth $300 after they reprint it to Oblivion. Um, it just and I think that the collecting sort of I mean, we saw what happened with Chronicles, like everyone screamed bloody murder, and like Carrion Ants was worth like $40, $50, and then they reprinted it and
It's like
it's worth nothing.
25 cents. Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That would be that would be a bummer because I know that my Beta Power Surge, it's not a blue chip stock.
Yeah, the problem with some of those beta cards is you got to find somebody who wants them. Like that, I don't know. Yeah, I have some beta cards. I have one alpha card, and I get the allure of buying those things. I'm just not a collector. Like I want them to like have some patina to them, but I'm also kind of looking for the cheapest playable version that's not like a complete like hole drilled through it. You know what I mean? So I just have a different perspective on some of it.
Yeah. Well,
All
get
my
yourself some CE then.
Yeah, I just bought a CE Mox jet so I can play in Vegas. Like
That's
I
what's
would
up.
I would never buy. I literally have it sitting right here because I'm like so pumped. Vexo sold me this for a good price, and like I'll never. It's it's a cool card. I know it's a proxy. Like I'm not going to take it to Europe
It's
or anything like that. But
See,
it's
I
I
don't
still
think it's
paid
a
like
proxy.
in the eyes of Wizards it is. In my eyes, it plays.
Yeah. No, I think CE is beautiful. I think CE is perfectly acceptable. And I mean, you can get Moxen now for what, 400, 500, $600. You can buy all the Moxen, right?
Yeah,
They're not
yeah,
that
yeah.
expensive right now.
And like realistically, the big piece that I think is I'm looking forward to coming down in price, maybe a little bit more, and I'll make a run for it is a CE Mock or not CE Mock, C Lotus. I
Hmm.
think I'm seeing like low 2K numbers right now. Now, another thing to mention is it's usually this is like the lull in quote unquote MTG finance is like now until Christmas time, till holiday time, if you will.
Yeah.
And then it'll prices will rise, right? Due to demand, I would assume.
I think prices. I predict prices will be best in January or February of 2024, and then they're going to creep up from there. And the
Okay.
reason why is because that is when people are getting those credit card bills in the mail for their Christmas expenditures. I
Yeah,
think
they got
right
to make
now
that cash back.
prices, yeah, I think right now prices are pretty low because everyone is taking trips. They've been on lockdown. They spent a lot of money during summer. Now kids are going to school. Everything is kind of returning to normal. So yeah, that's my prediction. February.
Okay. All right. In February, I'm gonna have in February or whatever the month is at March. I'll have you. We'll get this back, and we'll see about our predictions. I'm gonna I'm gonna end this here because it is 10:30 my time and well past my bedtime. But anything I do want to talk to you about something off quote unquote off air.
Sure.
But anything else you want to mention before I cut off the actual recording?
No, no, I'm good. Sorry to shops players and Corvette owners if we offended you, but
It's the
that's
Corvettes. I'm sure they're gonna come after us. It's those fucking Corvette
all
owners. God damn it. All right, I'm cutting this.
right. Aloha.